People that rent out their personal property as a service, Lyft, Uber, Airbnb, etc. What is your customer horror story? Lyft driver here. Got pulled out of my car at gunpoint by like 20 cops because the guys I picked up matched the description of some guys who had stolen a car. It wasn't them. Ran an Airbnb for a year. 4 clean-cut frat boys had a 7-day stay. When they checked out, I sent my usual "hope you enjoyed your trip" text, and they responded that the toilet hadn't been working for their stay. They could have told me this on day 1, on hour 1. Instead they used the toilet for a full week. There was a mountain of poop. A mountain. I took the toilet tank lid off. The chain had come loose. 4 men in their 20s didn't know how to attach the toilet tank chain. Forever and ever, for the rest of my life, I will feel smart, even though I'm the dummy who had to shovel poop mountain into contractor bags. Last week a woman who was fully vetted by Airbnb rented my house for what turned out to be a Halloween party. She lied about her intentions, even when I spoke to her over the phone. In just a few hours, they did over $3,000 in damage, and the police evicted 150 people for my 1,200 square feet home. It was only broken up by police because there was a gun shooting that landed somebody in the hospital. All this in a quiet residential neighborhood that is part of a golf resort, in a city that is not especially known for crime. I'm sure the damage would have been far worse if the police hadn't come because of the gunshots. Thank God nobody was killed. Good times. I drive for Uber Lyft as my sole means of income right now. It's never a dull moment. I've done about 1,600 rides with Uber and close to 1,000 with Lyft in 1 year. Most passengers are awesome. I never have issues, even with drunk people. One night though, this drunk girl and her drunk friends get in the car and are acting really obnoxious. I even joined in the banter a little bit to keep the ride fun. Going down a dangerous road at about 45 miles per hour, the girl sitting behind me reaches forward and covers my eyes and pulls my head back against the headrest, jokingly saying something about "what time is it" without looking. Game over. I was lucky for them we weren't far from their destination, otherwise I would have left them on the side of the road. I pulled over after dropping them off and left a lengthy complaint with Lyft about a dangerous passenger. Holy frick, what an idiot. I missed this, but when I drove Uber I picked up 5 dudes who were going bar hopping. The guy sitting in the middle center seat is barely keeping his head up, but we got a party Ray deposit bin in the back, so we're good. No, we're not. The smell hits me about 5 minutes out from the bar. His friends immediately diagnose the issue. Lucas. Goddammit. Again. Lucas had explosively crap his pants. We suffered together the final stanky 3 blocks and I dropped them off. They pulled their buddy out and everyone walked into the bar, seemingly unfazed. Filed the cleaning. Quit Uber the next week. They pulled their buddy out and everyone walked into the bar, seemingly unfazed. So classy. A friend had their car on jet around. Got it back and second gear was gone. GPS tracking showed it at over 120 miles per hour multiple times. Was dirty and smelled like weed. In fairness, Jet Around got the transmission fixed and they were all squared up after, but that car is no longer on Jet Around. I used to rent a property in Puerto Rico on a year lease basis. My last renters in 2012 left 2 months before their lease was up and took all the appliances. Fridge, stove, microwave, dishwasher, even the fricking ceiling fans. After a year-long case court I won and didn't get a single penny. They said they were broke. They went to jail and I lost a whole year of rent plus almost 6k in damages. Never again. Jesus, this entire thread has made me absolutely determined to never Uber, Airbnb or anything. I used to drive for Uber Lyft. Had some bad ones, usually the very drunk, but for the most part everything was great and went very smoothly. My horror story came from a ride I gave off the books, as it were. Pulled up to the pickup location. Girl comes out, the one who ordered the ride, and explains she ordered it for her friend. The card connected to the account has no money on it, but she offers me $20 for the ride in cash. Whatever. I needed the money and the spot she said her friend needed to go was relatively close. Would have been well under $20 if it was charged through the app. I agree and she signals to this very tall guy who walks down from the porch. Red flags were already going off. This guy gets in the back and we take off. I consider myself a pretty social and outgoing person, and soon into the ride this guy and I are talking about all sorts of things from basketball to movies, as well as our destin for traffic in the large city we live in. 5 minutes or so of this and he brings up his love for firearms. Next red flag, asks if I own any. I don't and inform him as such. He then proceeds to pull out 2 handguns from his backpack, explaining how he just picked them up the other day and loves them, even flashes them to me in the rearview mirror. I'm fully freaking out internally, but I keep my cool as we're nearing the destination. As we pull up to this guy's house, he explained that he is a drug dealer and that he really enjoyed our conversation and thinks I'd make a great driver for him as he makes his drops. I explained that I'm not interested but thanked him for the compliment. Unfortunately, he was fairly insistent I start working for him and would not exit the car till I gave him my phone number. He somehow bought the fake number I gave him and told me he'd call me soon. As soon as he was out of my car, I took off. That was one of the last nights I drove for Uber Lyft. If the number I randomly gave out actually belongs to anyone, I apologize if you got a late night call from Tim. Tim's Uber fast drug delivery. Picked up a guy in Hollywood at 1 AM who wanted a lift to the valley. I became increasingly concerned as we drove up into the hills. He told me to turn into a completely dark nature reserve. He told me that his girlfriend was a land use manager for the park and he was going to stay with her overnight. We drove through the dark winding roads of Fryman Canyon, and I honestly thought he was going to kill me. There was also a car following us. Turned out, he was right. His girlfriend did live out there, and I wasn't harassed at all. The car following us was a park ranger wondering what the heck I was doing out there so late. I'm glad the park ranger was there though, just in case things went south. Some little crap shot BBs through one of our bathroom doors. We know which family did it too, but they denied it and we have no proof. Those parents knew dang well their kid did it too. I'll never understand why they couldn't act like adults and own up to it. Another one that bothered me was when someone put all of their cigarette butts in my charcoal grill. Like seriously? I don't have a problem with smokers, but clean up your freaking butts at least. Question. I'll never understand why they couldn't act like adults and own up to it. Answer. $$. Not a horror story but frustrating. I have an Airbnb rental in a small ski town. One of our first guests was a single guy who brought his shitty. He stayed for one night and left a 1-star review saying there was no silverware in the house. There's literally like 40 of everything. The power went out across half the mountain due to an ice storm and he was bored. And finally that he was disappointed that the fridge wasn't stocked. Clearly says on our listing that food and drink are not provided. Here's the kicker. The next guests that came in went to clean some mud they thought they tracked into the house. Ended up being dog crap from the butt's shitty. Yep, and the good thing about Airbnb is that you can 0-star rate that inconsiderate guy so future renters don't have to deal with his crap. Literally. This wasn't me personally, but I helped my boss manage her Airbnb. First off, she was running it illegally. The city I live in, a lot of apartment buildings don't allow it. Anyways, this girl rented it out for a week in December last year. My boss is out of the country and gets this call that her fob has been deactivated due to damage to the property and the fact that a brothel was being run out of her apartment. This woman and her friend were literally freaking dudes all over this place. One guy got mad, left and punched a picture in the foyer which was caught on camera. I got a call to be on standby, but the police went in and did their thing. There was baby wipes, used condoms everywhere, literally semen everywhere. She got a pretty hefty fine for the damage and also for the fact she was using Airbnb to rent out her condo. I rent out a rustic cabin on my property. The setting is really nice and serene beside a creek and there's a cedar sauna on the property as well. But the cabin is small. There's a queen bed in the loft and a double futon on the main floor and its dimensions are roughly 12 feet by 10 feet, so I tell people the max is 4 people per night. Well, this young guy messages me and asks me if they can have 7. Promises they'll be really respectful and clean. And I work with someone the guy knows, so I cave. They left the place kind of clean, but burned a hole in the hardwood floor and broke the handle off the sliding glass door. Turns out, with that many people cooking etc., the humidity in winter caused some moisture condensation on the track. which subsequently froze, and instead of just leaving it and letting me know, he forced the door closed, breaking the handle in the process. Not an easy featuring. Hurt his hand as well. He was sure to let me know. Code for don't take my damage deposit or I'll sue you. You can bet I never let more than 4 in there now. I drive for Uber. I got a pickup for one of the satellite buildings of a local hospital. No big, I've picked up and dropped off people there before and I had never had an issue. As it turns out, the department I was picking up from was the rehab clinic for the area. As you may or may not know, there's a 5-minute wait time from the moment we arrive. App determines it, not us, to the moment when the driver can simply cancel and collect the cancellation fee. For obvious reasons, we tend to keep a sharp eye on the clock. The time was getting close to the 5-minute mark when I got a text. A nurse or doctor on the inside was using Uber to transfer a patient. Okay, still no big, I guess. About 10 seconds later, some bedraggled guy comes out a bit unsteadily and asks if I'm here for doctor. I said yes, and he said that he was the transfer. He got in, and I started the trip to discover that the trip was for 70 miles away to another rehab clinic. Now, long trips are my jam. I get paid well for them. They're easier and less stressful than a bunch of little trips, so I was pleased. Not 2 minutes into the trip, he was like, hey man, I don't really want to go there, take me over there instead. He wasn't asking, he was telling. Already, I'm uncomfortable and decide it's easier to just do what this guy wants rather than stick to the requested destination. He can't pick out exactly which way he wants me to go, so just starts telling me to turn onto random streets. Some point during this adventure, he asks me how much cash I had on me. Red flags all around now. I tell him I don't really carry cash. He sighs, says I was really hoping for at least $15, and pulls out a small knife. Frick. So now I'm panicking and pulling out my wallet at the next red light. I had $5 from someone who tipped me earlier that day, but nothing else. He took the bill and told me to keep going. Christ, I'm shaking a little just telling the story. We arrive at what I assume is a drug house. Guy tells me to wait for him and gets out of the car. I can only assume that he was desperate for his next hit or whatever and so didn't really think that through. I shut and locked the door and took off as soon as he was across the street. Went home, reported it to Uber. I didn't file a police report because it was only $5, and Uber said they'd take care of it. I don't really believe it, but I didn't really want to deal with anything else that day anyway. You should have contacted the doctor's office and made a huge stink. Not so much personal property as it is my experience working in event planning. There were customers who would rent our equipment and treat it as if it were their own. Then there were people who out and out abused our stuff. The worst experience that comes to mind had to do with a caterer whom had consistently rented from us. He was hired for a wedding reception on a ship and asked us for wine glasses, plates, linens, and the like. After that weekend, we received less than half of our stuff back or it was broken. The wine glasses were thrown into the box they were delivered in and most of those were destroyed. The same went for the plates, but we did recover most of the linens. Not all. My boss told the caterer he was going to be charged for the broken glasses and plates and he immediately assumed no fault. Well dude, don't call us frauds when you sign a contract clearly stating that you agree to reimburse us for damages. He tried disputing it with his credit card company, but we won out. Treat it as if it were their own. Then there were people who out and out abused our stuff. The two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. My boss bought the house behind mine and turned it into an Airbnb rental. Once some people rented it and just gave it to their teenagers who threw a rager. I started hearing lots of car doors slamming and hearing kids walking right past our windows, 20 feet from the sidewalk, so cutting in our yard. It got insane fast and apparently the cops just made all the kids leave and told my boss to throw away all the drugs and alcohol they left behind. I had to clean up a lot from my yard too. Shortly after that someone rented it and threw a wedding in the house and basically destroyed it. They dumped pots of food everywhere and he had to spend thousands of dollars cleaning it. They burned carpets and the whole place stank. Last I heard he was still renting places out. You have been visited by Angry Doggo. Comment calm down, Papa, to enjoy a life full of peace and harmony. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, Have a great day, you magnificent people.